ready for anything. The old town clock chimed, its sound echoing in the night. 4 friends, Max, Chloe, Ben and Emily, huddled beneath a flickering streetlight. It was Halloween night and their hearts thumped with a mix of excitement and fear. Tonight was the night they'd explore the infamous Cranbrook Manor. Chloe adjusted her beanie, her breath misting in the cold air. "Are we really doing this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "Don't worry," Max said, his voice a confident whisper. He held up a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. "We'll stick together. What could go wrong?" Emily, the bravest of the group, grinned. "Let's do this," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. With a shared look, the 4 friends turned towards the dark silhouette of Cranbrook Manor, ready for whatever the night held. Cranbrook Manor. The wrought-iron gates of Cranbrook Manor groaned, as if disturbed after a long sleep. The manor loomed before them, its windows dark, lifeless eyes staring out at the world. A shiver ran down Ben's spine as he pushed the gate open. The gravel path crunched under their feet, each step echoing in the stillness. The air grew colder, damp and heavy with the scent of decay. The further they walked, the more uneasy they felt, as if unseen eyes watched their every move. "Do you think anyone lives here?" Chloe whispered, clutching Ben's arm. He tried to shrug off her touch, but the fear in her voice was contagious. Ignoring her, Max led the way, his flashlight beam dancing across the overgrown bushes and crumbling walls. "Only one way to find out," he said, his voice unnaturally loud in the stillness. They finally reached the front door, its dark wood warped and aged, a silent testament to the house's forgotten past. Whispers in the dark. Max pushed the heavy door open, and a musty smell wafted out, filling their senses with the scent of dust and decay. The house was silent except for the creaking of the floorboards beneath their feet. As they ventured deeper into the house, strange things began to happen. Whispers seemed to emanate from the walls, too faint to make out any words, but loud enough to send shivers down their spines. Shadows danced at the edge of their vision, disappearing when they turned to face them. Emily swore she saw a figure vanish around a corner, but when they followed, there was nothing there. "This is creepy," Ben muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "Maybe we should go back." "Don't be ridiculous," Max said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "It's just an old house. There's nothing to be afraid of." But even he sounded unsure. Footsteps followed. They continued their exploration, each room filled with an eerie silence punctuated by the occasional creak or groan. The air grew colder and the feeling of being watched intensified. They could hear the sound of their own breathing, their hearts pounding in their chests. As they climbed the grand staircase, Chloe swore she heard footsteps following them. Heavy, deliberate footsteps that seemed to echo the rhythm of their own, but at a slower, more menacing pace. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. The others stopped, listening intently. The sound stopped. "It's nothing, Chloe," Max said, his voice strained. "It's probably just the house settling." But he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. They continued up the stairs, their pace quickened by a growing sense of unease. The footsteps started again, slower this time, more deliberate. They were being followed. Reaching the top of the stairs, they found themselves facing a long, dark corridor. Portraits of stern-faced strangers lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow the teens' every move. Suddenly a figure appeared at the end of the hallway. Tall and gaunt, it stood shrouded in shadow, its features indistinguishable in the dim light. The teens froze, their breath catching in their throats. "Who's there?" Max challenged, his voice trembling slightly. The figure didn't move. It simply stood there, its presence radiating an aura of menace. Then, slowly, it began to move towards them. Its footsteps were silent, but its approach was unmistakable. The teens were trapped, caught between their terror and the advancing figure. As the figure drew closer, the teens could hear a faint sound accompanying its movements. It was a soft, chilling laugh, a low chuckle that seemed to emanate from the very walls of the manor itself. Chloe whimpered, burying her face in Ben's arm. He put a protective arm around her, his own fear evident in his trembling hands. Emily, usually the bravest, stood frozen, her eyes wide with terror. Max, his heart pounding, shone the flashlight beam directly at the figure. As the light fell upon it, the laughter grew louder, echoing through the hallway, bouncing off the walls and seeming to come from every direction at once. The figure stopped a few feet away, still shrouded in shadow, the laughter continuing to echo around them. The teens huddled together, their eyes fixed on the figure, their minds racing, trying to comprehend what they were experiencing. Suddenly the laughter stopped. The figure stepped into the light, and the teens gasped. It was a man, tall and thin, dressed in a tattered tuxedo, a mischievous glint in his eyes. He held a single lantern, its flickering flame casting dancing shadows on the walls. "Happy Halloween, everyone!" he boomed, his voice a stark contrast to the eerie laughter they had heard moments before. The teens stared at him, confused and relieved, their fear giving way to a mixture of annoyance and amusement. "You scared us half to death!" Emily exclaimed, her voice trembling with residual fear. The man chuckled, a deep rumbling sound that was more amusing than frightening. "Oh, just a bit of fun," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Welcome to Cranbrook Manor. I'm Mr. Cranbrook, the caretaker, and you've just become players in my little game." Mr. Cranbrook led the teens to a grand ballroom, its once polished floor now dusty and cobwebbed. He explained that he loved Halloween and enjoyed giving those brave enough to venture into his home a good scare. "But what about the laughter?" Ben asked, still slightly shaken. "And the figure in the hallway?" Mr. Cranbrook winked. "It's all part of the fun, my boy. Smoke, mirrors, and a bit of theatricality. It's amazing what a few well-placed speakers and a spooky sound recording can do." He led them to a corner of the ballroom where, hidden behind a velvet curtain, was a collection of speakers and sound equipment. He showed them the recordings he used. The laughter and ghostly sounds, all created using technology and a bit of creativity. As the teens prepared to leave, feeling a mixture of amusement and relief that the night's frights were nothing more than elaborate tricks, Mr. Cranbrook handed each of them a small, intricately carved wooden puzzle box. "A souvenir," he said with a wink. "But be careful. They say these boxes hold a piece of the manor's magic. Open them at your own risk." He chuckled again, a deep echoing sound that seemed to follow them out into the night. As they walked back down the path, the moon breaking through the clouds to illuminate the manor in an eerie glow, Chloe stumbled, dropping her puzzle box. It sprang open on impact, and a cold wind swept through the group, extinguishing Max's flashlight and plunging them into darkness. Then, from the depths of the manor, echoing across the grounds, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night. The real scare, it seemed, had just begun.